Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by RockAuto.com. All the parts your car will ever need.
Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Well, I promised you an old school charging system, and bam, there it is. But before we get into that, let's talk about an alternator. What does it even do? Well, it supplies all the electrical power when the car is running. Well, it's supposed to, but today's cars with all the electrical loads, man, you got these amplifiers booming, you got kids sitting in the back seat playing video games, you got telephones, you got chargers, and if you're Dave and love the Browns, you got 3 or 4 coolers in the car plugged into cigarette lighters on game day. Let me show you what's going on. You got an alternator here that charges about 90 amps. You can see right here the ignition, the headlights, the blower, everything's going, and we're putting out 112 amps, man. That's a ton of amps. That's over exceeding the alternator. So what happens then? Well, we start robbing it from the battery. Well, that shortens the battery life. Now to that old school charging system. Bam, look at that schematic. Man, that's a lot easier than that smart system over there on that Ford. This is just old school. You can see here I got 12 volts coming down to the alternator wiring the indicator. So that's 12 volts. And then it uses the alternator as a ground. So when I fire it up, this guy's going to send 12 volts back up here. Bam, it's going to cancel that light out so it goes out if it's charging. Then over here, we got a couple of wires we're going to feed 12 volts down to so we can excite the field in there and get it charging. So pretty simple. If you look over here, you actually put it on a demo on a board here, you guys can see. And I got the meter like we had on our pickup truck over there. So what if I fire this system up, you can see it's at 12 volts. To know it's charging, it should rise up to about 14 volts, and I'll fire it up. And you can see it, turn the ignition on. Bam, as soon as I turn the ignition on, there we are, 14 volts. Well, that's a good thing. That means that we're charging, and you can see when I shut it off, the light comes back on because I only have 12 volts going through one side. Turn it on, goes up the other, we know it's working. Now, 2 places you want to check voltage, pretty simple on an old school system. Check voltage at the back of the alternator. Now I'm going to go to the main wire here on the alternator that's going all the way back on our schematic over there that feeds the battery. That's the big one on the back of the alternator. Now you should have voltage there 24/7, so be careful. If your car is off and you think you can go out and disconnect it, if you touch that wrench to something, you're going to short it out, you're going to have a problem. So I'm going to go across that one, and there's 12 volts. That's a good thing. Now the other one, I want to excite that field up there, so I'm going to unplug this one right here. I'm going to come across that one, and then I'm going to go to the alternator ground, and I need 12 volts there. So I need 12 volts in 2 places. I need it at the top, and I need it down there at the bottom, so it can charge when we fire it up. Now you understand an old school system, they're working on the new school system, but you want to stick around because we got our Keep It or Crush It segment coming up right after this break. There's plenty more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Crush it!
I love it.